Hey everyone, and welcome to our Gen AI workflow webinar today. We're going to be covering film and TV production. And I'm Liz, I'm VP Marketing here at Leonardo.AI, and I have with me today Joel.
Hello, I'm Joel, a content and partnerships manager here at Leonardo. Very excited to be presenting today's film and TV demos to you. I've got a bit of a background in the entertainment industry, having made short films and web series over the years. So this is a real passion area of mine and really can't wait to jump into today's workflows with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. And a few reminders just before we get going. So, we will record this session and we'll email you a copy so you can check it out after the webinar if you need to. It'll also be up on YouTube. And then we also have our fabulous community team in the chat today. So, if you have questions, don't hesitate, jump in there. They're absolute experts and they can help you out along the way. We'll also make sure there's Q&A time at the end. So, let's get into it. Our run sheet for today. So we've got about an hour together, and firstly, we'll jump into a few industry case studies and have a look at what is happening in the film and TV production industry. And then I'll take a quick minute to take you through today's workflows. Then I'm going to pass to Joel, who's going to demo those workflows on the platform live for you. And then finally, we'll run through your questions in the Q&A. Cool. So let's jump into it. So how we see some of the Leonardo being used in the film and TV industry. So I've got a few lovely examples to kick us off here. So first up is Voxel Studios. So Voxel Studios are a VFX and post-production studio, and their works across HBO, Disney, Netflix. Some of the examples that they've worked on are shows like Euphoria and The Lincoln Lawyer. And they've been using Leonardo to create horror makeup effects, like the ones that you see on this screen here. So the hand and this lady here, who obviously has been turned into this terrifying person on the right. Then next up, we've got Paul Trillo. Paul's a director based in LA, and he's part of our Leonardo Creator Program. And Paul's done a lot of interesting work. One of the things that he's done recently is a campaign for UFC, and it was focused on Mexican cultural heritage. And he used Leonardo extensively in the process. And one of the aspects that he used it for was this character creation and character art here, like the man that you see on the left in the images here. And Paul's also done a bunch of short films and music videos, and used Leonardo gens right through the creation of them. And here are a few more examples that you see on the screen here from those. And the last example we've got today is Imix Studios. Imix are an animation studio based in Melbourne, and they're doing a lot of hybrid AI generated animation work. And they're really experimenting with combining different techniques there in the animation world. They've been using Leonardo in the pipeline, more in that post-production piece, to really upscale the images. And for anyone who's new to image generation today, you could think of upscaling as like that process that you take to almost put your images into high resolution, if you like. And they've also used it in the ideation phase of their process. So that's a few examples to take you through, but let's jump into today's workflows. So firstly, we'll be looking at creating cinematic storyboards, and then we're going to look at designing posters and concept art for your project. And then lastly, we'll look at creating reference images for pre-production. So over to you, Joel. I'm going to hand over to you so you can jump through these workflows, sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz, and thank you for that incredible introduction. I'm just going to add my screen onto the stage here. Cool. Okay. We're going to start off today's webinar by looking at creating cinematic storyboards. This is a really exciting workflow, and it's perfect for creating storyboards for your project. Creating cinematic storyboards. So There's a few steps to this one. The first is we're going to create some initial storyboard visuals using Cinematic Kino, which is our model that is perfect for creating cinematic imagery. And then we're going to build out a scene, creating a few different shots and experimenting there. And then we're going to look at creating consistent characters for your storyboard. And then finally, we'll look at controlling image composition and style. So by the end of this workflow, you should be able to build out images just like this one. This is some stuff I've been working on for a hypothetical submarine thriller. We've got a couple shots of characters. We've got a macro and we've got a wide. And then we'll build out key art for some of these characters. And then we'll look at putting an actor or even a non-actor into one of the characters. And then finally, we'll look at controlling image composition using different reference images. So here to control image composition. And then on this next slide, we'll look at controlling style. And by the end of it, you should be able to create images for your storyboards in a variety of different styles. Okay, let's get into it. So this is what you'll see when you log on to Leonardo.AI. This is the home screen of the Leonardo app. So from here, you can access all of our different tools, including real-time canvas, the universal upscaler, motion, and the canvas editor. But for this workflow, we're going to be using image creation. You can find it here in the middle of the screen, but it's also here in the sidebar as well. So to create some base assets, let's select the Cinematic Kino preset. Presets are like a bundle of image generation settings for specific use cases. Now, Cinematic Kino, as I said before, is great for creating cinematic imagery, but as you can see, there are different presets here for creating all sorts of different imagery. And in terms of the settings for today, let's leave the preset style on cinematic, but you can change these preset styles to go for different looks and feels like fashion, retro, long exposure, etc. We're going to keep the generation mode on fast today since we want to be ideating pretty quickly. And the image dimensions, let's put it on 16:9 because we're making movies and that is a pretty standard size for video. We'll leave it on small so we keep it nice and quick. And then in terms of the prompt, Kino works pretty well with simple prompts. So I'm going to use one that is pretty lean for our submarine film. So I'll start our scene off with a wide. So wide shot, submarine, loading in open ocean. And let's see what we get from that. Christopher asked, why Cinematic Kino over Phoenix? Phoenix is our foundational model, which is really great for like prompt adherence and rendering text within images. It's extremely powerful. But Cinematic Kino and some of our other models are trained for very specific use cases. So in this example, Cinematic Kino is trained for cinematic imagery. So off the back, as you can see, we get pretty crisp cinematic images like the ones you're seeing here. This is our wide of our submarine, looking pretty good. From here, let's say that we want to build out our scene a little bit. We've got our wide, so we want to punch in. Let's create some shots of our characters. I'll start with a male submarine captain. He's going to be our villain. So for him, the prompt will read a male submarine captain, brooding and evil. Let's see what that gives us. When I don't include the camera angle in the prompt in this example, I'm probably going to get a mid shot by default, or like a mid to close up when it's like a character. Okay, so this is our submarine captain. He's looking pretty brooding, pretty evil, I reckon, pretty thrillery. And let's make his counterpart the hero. So maybe a female submarine captain, heroic and noble. And for her, let's do an additional version where we ask for a close-up. I noticed there were some comments there asking around camera angles. I'm going to change the preset style from cinematic to cinematic close-up, and I'll generate this again. So including close-up in the prompt and changing that preset style. Our female submarine captain. I like the look of this one. And then our close-up, as you can see, it's punched in a bit on her face there. Awesome. But we are working on a thriller, right? So we need a little bit of tension. Let's do a shot of something foul and strange happening. So for this one, I want to create an extreme close up. I want a macro of blood on the side of a naval ship, and let's see what we get from that. And so remember, I'm on a cinematic close up for the preset style, hoping to create something dark and moody. Going on here. Okay, let's see what we get from here. Note that the system will flag when things explicit or not safe for work in this example. Okay, that's pretty moody and evil. So we've started to build out our scene. Yeah, we've got our submarine, our wide, and then we've got our male submarine captain, our female submarine captain looking out into space, and then our close up of blood on the naval ship. This is all looking pretty cool, but at the moment, we're working with kind of the basics of image generation. And in this next stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to take control of those generations using reference images. So let's say you wanted to create a consistent character across all of your storyboards. For instance, that male submarine captain. You wanted his face to look the same across all of your different shots and then maybe even scenes. I'm going to go back down here and I'm going to use this button here to reuse that prompt, which should give us a reasonably similar looking output. Then I'm going to open the image guidance menu here. Now, image guidance is our sort of suite of tools for taking creative control over your gens. And I'm going to go to character reference, and then I'm going to upload a photo of this guy right here. He is, rightly or wrongly, who the casting director went with. So we're going to go with him. Now, when I click on this little thumbnail here, you can see a few different options for the strength of the image reference. I've got low, mid, and high. So this is about how much that image affects the outcome. So if I put it on high, it's going to have a strong effect on the outcome. Put it on mid, less, and low, etc. Very brooding and evil. Thank you, Alex. I'm nothing if not brooding and evil. So let's generate one with me at a mid character reference, and then let's generate some with a high character reference as well. And hopefully you'll be able to see the difference there.
Loving the casting choice, Joel.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought he was the best guy for the role. What can I say?
Loving the suggestions too in the chat, folks. Some
Yeah.
good product requests coming through there in the mix.
Okay, so let's take a look at what that gave us. So this is me on a mid character reference. So you can see it's bringing my face through there. And then when I put it on high, it's pumping in my features even more. You can see it's really captured the schnoz, the teeth, the eyes. It's the spitting image. Okay, we've got a version of our submarine captain that works with our actor, and then you can roll that out across all of your different generations. And yeah, this takes the face from the reference image and puts that in the image. I noticed there was a question there earlier around, is this focused on the face? Yes, basically. So what if you want to control, instead of the character's face within a shot, what if you want to control the entire image composition? So for this next workflow, we're going to take a look at controlling image composition. I'm going to reuse one of I'm going to create a new prompt actually for this one. It's back to our sort of wide shot, but maybe a submarine floating in deep water covered in moss. Now I'm going to use a different image guidance tool to guide this one. This is edge to image. So edge to image detects the edge of an image input and uses that as a guide. So it finds the outline within the image and then creates a generation around that. I'm going to use this 3D render of a submarine that I found online. It's an open source image. And then again, I can change sort of the strength or the weighting of the reference image. I'm going to pull this down a little bit to around 0.6, which gives the AI like a little bit of latitude, a little bit of freedom while still adhering to the outline of that reference image. And let's generate and see what we get out of that. So if I've done my job, hopefully we can see an image that looks more or less from like a composition in the frame perspective, like this 3D render, but fills out that with our ocean and our moss. Okay, cool. Nice. These are looking good. So as you can see, it's kept that outline more or less, but has added in the moss, it's added in the water, it's added in all of that additional details. Okay, so this wraps up the storyboarding workflow. So we created sort of some basic shots for our scene. We've created a consistent character across our generations, and we've created some sort of fine-tuned image composition. I'm going to jump into our next workflow, which is all about designing posters and concept art for your project. Okay, so anyone who has worked on a film and TV project knows that coming up with a great idea and a great story is incredible, but it's really important to be able to market that story after the fact or pitch it to producers and production companies ahead of the fact. And so, what this workflow focuses on is how to create concept art and concept posters for your film. So, the first step is creating posters and concept art using Phoenix, our foundational model. And then we'll look at editing text and content using our Edit with AI function. And then finally, look at refining and upscaling those images for print or digital distribution, and then generating some video for a sizzle reel, which is like a trailer for your video project. So this is an example, one that I cooked up earlier, of a concept art piece for our submarine thriller with our title as well as our tagline. And then here's a version with a different title, and then some sort of base images that I worked up in terms of creating a video for a sizzle reel and animating that video and putting it next to our titles, and then pulling them together to create a simple but effective piece of video that we could use as part of a conceptual video sizzle reel. All right, awesome. Let's jump into it. So I'm just going to clear the decks here. So as you saw with those outputs, we're going to be working on posters and concept art that include text. And our foundational model, Phoenix, which you can access here in the presets, is perfect at rendering text within images. And you'll see that in just a second. So I'm going to navigate to Phoenix to start with. We're going to keep it on fast mode again. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to turn prompt auto enhance off. So auto enhance will take your prompt and improve it by adding additional detail. But for now, I want to keep it simple and I want to keep those outputs limited to what I write in the prompt. And then I'll add that additional detail later. For the prompt, I've kept this pretty simple to start with, just so I can work from there. It's a concept image for a horror film set in a submarine, darkness, eerie, strange. Text reads submarine. But note that with that prompt, I have asked it to explicitly render text. And so hopefully we get back that exact word, submarine. Let's see where we get to with this. Okay, cool. These are coming through pretty quick. Okay, great. So yeah, nice. This one's looking a little bit shark-like. I really like where we're getting to with this one. It's basically given me what I asked for. They look pretty spooky. They look pretty dark. The title of our film is rendered in the image, but it's pretty basic to start with. So let's work up our concept poster from here. To do this, I can use Edit with AI. Now, Edit with AI is a really powerful tool. You can find it using this pencil icon here, and it helps you tweak your existing images using natural language to change or add specific details. So for this one, I'm going to click in, and then I'm going to ask it to add in a tagline, the depths of depravity. And let's see where we get to with here. With Edit with AI, you can actually expand the prompt here, and you can see how from our original prompt, Edit with AI has asked Leonardo to add in additional information. So here it's asked to add in the depths of depravity in a bold, ominous font above or below the title with subtle red or eerie green undertones. And it's done exactly that. Okay, so it's looking a little spookier, and we've got our tagline in there as well. It's, oh, cool. So far, so good. So from here, let's use Edit with AI again and show how you can mix up your outputs. So let's, for example, imagine that there's been a change of plans with the film and the location fell through. And instead of being set on a submarine, it's now set on a Navy cruiser. So I'll use Edit with AI again on our original set of images, and I'll ask it to change the setting to a Navy battleship. I'll just spell that correctly and make the text read battleship. All right. So as you can see, working with image gen and working particularly with Phoenix is a very iterative process. It's all about like going back, generating more. Okay, these are coming through nice and quick, and working up more and more outputs. Okay, so now we have a completely different film, Battleship. But we've kept, as you can see, some of that mood, that thrillery mood, that darkness. And now I'm going to use Edit AI one more time and say, okay, like basically, what if we liked our original image, but we just want to amp everything up about it? Like, we just want to make this more epic, awesome, and scary, but keep the title the same. Maybe instead of scary, thrillery or tense. Yeah, let's see where we get to from there. Working with Edit AI really is that natural language. You are talking to the system, so we can give it. Okay, wow. Okay, cool. So we've got a much more flavoursome image here that's used totally different imagery to our original set of images. It's mixed up the font, and it's created this kind of like flooded underwater scene, presumably inside of a naval sub. So we've got those additional details rendered in, a little bit more flavor, a little bit more energy. But say we want to take one of these images and start working with it in, be it in a deck or be it on social media to promote a film. So I'm going to show you today how to upscale. So I'll select an image that I like. I might go with this first one or the second one from the Battleship series. You just click to access the upscaler. You click on the image within the feed, and then you can see down here at the bottom of the image, we've got this little button here. This is our upscale image. Inside the upscaler, it will default to the ultra upscaler. So we're going to leave it on the ultra upscaler today. Ultra upscaler is our newest upscaling model. And then under upscale settings, you can see we've got two different styles. So we can choose from either a realistic style or an artistic style. Realistic style is perfect for photorealistic images, and artistic style is better for things like illustrations or paintings or digital art, things like that. I'm going to leave it on a realistic style. And then we've got our upscale multiplier. So here you can see we start at 1 and we can pull it up. And as I increase the upscale multiplier to a maximum of 2x, I can see the image dimensions increasing there. So we started at just shy of or just over HD frame, and now we're getting to like a 2K frame. So under advanced settings, I've got a few different things I can play with here. What I'm going to be using today is the creativity strength. The creativity strength controls how much liberty the upscaler has in terms of adding in additional information using AI. So a higher setting results in more freedom, more the AI taking more liberties with your image, whereas a lower freedom adheres more to that original input. So today I'm going to set this at a 7 and go from there. So it's going to work its magic. Oop. Okay, awesome. So the upscaler is working its magic just there. And so this is our original image and this is our upscale image. So we can see, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, it's added in additional detail, but when we zoom in, it's even more obvious. So it's obviously a much larger image straight away, but it added in additional sort of definition around the water there. It's taken what was like vague shapes aboard the deck of the ship and it's turned them into clearer figures. And then in the background, that fog is rendered a lot more strongly as well. Awesome. So From here, you might want to create a short snippet video to add into a sizzle reel. So that is like a concept trailer for your project. Today, we'll make some moody B-roll of the ocean that can sit behind some text. So we're going to start by making a base image to animate. For this one, I'm going to stay in image creation and Phoenix, but I'm going to swap that preset style from the default, which is dynamic, to cinematic. And then I'm going to get a very simple prompt to begin with, which is a moody shot of the ocean, still and dark. But this time around, I am going to change prompt enhance back to auto. And you're going to see in a second what that does. Basically, it will, I know I mentioned it earlier, but what it does is it takes that initial sort of kernel of a prompt and then it expands it a lot as part of the image generation process. So as you can see, moody shot of the ocean, and then now it's added in heaps of additional words, cinematic, high contrast, dawn or dusk, etc. And so these are the outputs we're getting. They're pretty much what we asked for. It's a moody shot of the ocean. But as you can see, it's pretty flat. It looks a little bit stock. And from here, we might want to create something with a little bit more flavor, a little bit more action, a little bit more energy. And since it's a thriller, some darkness and mystery, right? So I'm going to show you how we can do that using Edit with AI. So I'll use Edit with AI on that set of images and I'll ask it to add a plume of smoke rising from the water and see where we get to with that.
Lots of nice comments coming in. Interesting to see folk are using Upscaler in their production processes.
Oh, good to hear. Yeah, it's a super handy tool and it's perfect as well. One nice way of using it is working with like lower generation image generation settings. So you can work really quickly and then upscaling those when you start to the look of them. That kind of iterative approach to creativity that I've been talking about. So these are looking a little bit more flavorsome. We've got our plume of smoke in the background. Let's say, I don't know, just we want to emphasize, make the plume bigger. Let's see where we get to with that. I hope Phoenix understands what a plume is. It definitely does. Okay, cool. So let's say these are looking what we where we want to get to. Let's animate them using motion. So to generate motion from an image, you want to hover over the image in the feed and press the generate motion video button here. Inside of motion, you can change the motion strength. So a higher motion strength results in more motion, more movement within the frame, whereas a lower motion strength creates a more subtler movement. So I'm going to keep it pretty low today. I'm going to do it on a 3. And then I'll do another version just to show you on an even lower motion strength, a 2, just to see if there's any difference there. Motion will take a couple seconds to generate.
Few folk have talked through how they go through their motion workflows, and that's interesting to hear. Thanks for the insights, guys, on what you're looking for next with the video functionality.
Definitely. I know the team is very keen to work up more motion to keep expanding the motion tool. I know it's definitely something they're looking at.
There's also a question here around hands and fingers and things like that. Joel, I don't know if you have any sort of insights there on accuracy of hands when it comes to generating images and the different models.
It's a good question. I think if you're using Phoenix, you should have less issues since it is our newer model that is more prompt adherent, whereas some of the older models more are based on, legacy workflows, which legacy pipelines, sorry, which won't work quite as well. Okay, so this is where we got to with that first motion gen. Looking pretty good. And this is our second one. As you can see, the movement is a little bit subtler, a little bit softer. So I think these honestly would be perfect for creating our sizzle. We just use this and then we just throw the title, like our transparent title on top, and we have a nice piece of video for promoting our project. Thanks so much, everyone. That is workflow 2. Now I'm going to move on to workflow 3, which is about creating reference images for pre-production. So when you are working on a film, you have to communicate with a lot of different creatives, a lot of different heads of department using a variety of different visuals, whether it's a treatment or a storyboard or a deck of some description. And in doing so, you need to describe, be it like a location, a costume, or a prop with that perfect image to really clearly articulate your vision to your collaborator so that they know exactly what you're after. And so this workflow is all about that. It's about taking fine-tuned control of your composition. So we're going to start by using real-time canvas to create a base image for the composition. Then we'll make some high-quality reference imagery using image creation. And finally, we'll look at controlling lighting and creating style variations. This is what it'll look like in real-time canvas. As we build out our scene, we'll be building out a location that will be passing on to, say, a location manager or maybe a VFX artist to develop in green screen. And then we'll look at taking that initial output from real time and creating cinematic versions. And then finally, we'll look at creating versions of that reference image in a variety of different styles so we can communicate it. So I'm going to navigate back to our home screen, and then I'm going to navigate to real-time canvas. I'm going to delete this one that I was cooking up earlier, and we'll start from scratch. So this is what real-time canvas will look like. I'm going to start by generating a lighthouse to get our scene going. So I can click regenerate a few times here until I find one that I like that kind of suits, like this one. And then from here, I can change its placement in the frame. So it doesn't have a prompt to go off, so it doesn't really know what to generate. So it's generating all sorts of things on the right there. I like it here, and then I'm going to use this remove background tool to pull out the background so that I can control the composition a bit more. Okay, awesome. But like I said, it really has no idea what we're generating. So it's generating some kind of bizarre shape over there. So I'm going to say a lighthouse so I'm using the prompt bar down here, a lighthouse next to a mountain. And one of the awesome things about real time is that it will just generate in real time as I type that prompt. Can resize the image here to get it to take up a little bit more of the frame. Cool. And now I'm going to use the brush tool here. I'm going to have it on a nice sort of darker green. And I'm going to start sketching in a mountain over here on the right. And hopefully as I do that, you can see that it will start to take that sketch input and turn it into generation on the right of the canvas. A couple things to look at here in the settings. We've got our creativity strength and we've got our preset style. So it's set to cinematic, but I can also change it to say like painting to get something a little bit more painterly. I'm gonna leave it on cinematic for today. And our creativity strength, this controls how much or how little the AI takes liberty with your output, becomes more creative. So like a higher strength, when I bump it up to closer to 1, it's taking more liberties with my output. And then when I pull it down lower, it's getting more and more closer to our input there on the left of the canvas. I'm going to leave it where it was originally, which is around like an 0.6, maybe a little higher. Then I'm going to just do a tiny bit of work to line up the top of our mountain there. It's giving me some rocks. Nice. Okay, let's say we wanted to work up our prompt a little more. So I can say a lighthouse, storm and lightning. Storm. Spell lightning correctly. That might, anyone know how to spell lightning? Okay, we got it. Cool. So we're creating a little bit more mood, a little bit more tension. So we've got our image in a nice place. I might just do one last experiment. See if we can create a lightning strike. Oh, nice. That worked. Sick. From here, there's a couple different ways I can take this sort of composition and create some high definition versions. So first I can instant refine that image. And as you'll see, within a few seconds, it'll tidy up the output. Then I can download it and save it for later. Or I can upscale the image. What this will do is it'll take that and it'll put it in my image feed so I can use it as a reference in a sec. Okay, so I'm going to go back into image creation for this next part of the workflow. As you can see, our image is appearing here. And we're going to go back to our cinematic Keynote preset to make those different variations of the image. So to use that image that we just created as a reference back into image guidance, I'm going to use content reference. So content reference takes the image that you are uploading or using as a guide and helps control the composition. Similar to edge to image, but it takes a little bit more liberty with the with the content of the image. It doesn't adhere to the outline, but it takes the entire context of the image as the reference. So I'm going to select our lighthouse image. And something to note, I'm going to change the image dimensions to 1 because our original reference image is 1:1. That's just going to help the system know exactly what it's going to make. And so to build out our prompt, I'm going to use the describe with AI function. So describe with AI is a feature that you can find in here. And what it does is it takes your reference image, your uploaded image, and it scans it and translates that uploaded image into a prompt. As you can see, it's taken that image and it's turned that into a prompt. It's looking pretty good. One thing I'm going to note is that I'm just going to make the prompt clear that it's a cinematic image at the top. And let's see what we get from that. So I haven't done too much of this. I haven't played around too much with settings. Cinematic Keynote on cinematic with that image as a content reference. I'll do one where it's a high content reference as well, just to see if there's any difference there. But hopefully what we'll get out of that is an image that adheres very much to that initial composition, but takes it into a bit more of a high definition cinematic look. Okay, these are looking great. Much more photographic, much more cinematic. Okay, and when we put it on high, pretty similar, maybe adhering a little bit more to that initial composition. So these are looking really nice. But when you are working with collaborators on a film, so ultimately the end product is a film. You're going to go on set, you're going to shoot. So sometimes it can be handy to create images in a more illustrative or pared back style rather than a photorealistic style. So I'm going to show you how to do that now using our elements. So let's add in an element that'll make this a little bit more illustrative. Okay, so elements live in this same menu here. I can click here and view more, and then I can select from one of our elements. I'm going to use abstract line art today to do an example that is a little bit more sort of hand drawn. Now, I can't draw to save myself, but if I use this element, I can pretend that I can. So I'm going to bump up the weighting a little bit to 1.2, and then I'm just going to change the prompt a tiny bit to make it a hand-drawn illustration and see where we get to there. I'll just do one more version where I bump it up a tiny bit more, just to see what we get. Hopefully this will do is give us a version of that image that adheres to that composition, but in a different style. Okay, cool. So these are looking cool, quite artistic. But as you can see, we've still got our lighthouse, we've still got our mountain, we've still got our storm and our lightning. And then when I crank the element up even more, it breaks a little bit. It gets a bit messy, but these are definitely where we'd want to get to. Tess asks, what's the difference between using elements and preset styles? Elements much more powerfully weighted in terms of your image outputs. They actually work on a technology called Allura, which is a model that's trained on a very specific imagery. So for instance, this abstract line art element is Allura that is trained on hundreds or probably thousands of hand-drawn images so that it gives you a very specific output. This brings me to the end of our third workflow, creating reference images. We've got a couple different options here that you can hand over to your location manager or to an artist that you're working with. But I think it's now time to hand back over to you, Liz, for the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joel. And thanks everyone on the webinar for all the great comments and questions. Let's jump into that. I'll just bring up our Q&A slide. So I've got some lovely questions coming in here from folks. I'm going to jump right back to earlier in your workflows, Joel. So Roderick's asked, can this cinematic storyboard work towards making a scene-by-scene digital comic book that will play scene automatically one after another as the pages turn while using consistent characters in the story?
Okay, I feel like that's a big question, but I think what you're asking for is, could Leonardo help you with this creative idea that you've got, which is a digital comic book? To that, I would say definitely yes. We have a lot of people who are creating graphic novels using Leonardo as to help them either ideate or create conceptual images or create base images for their stories. definitely it can. It can also help with consistent characters, as I showed earlier, that workflow with the character reference. Yes, it definitely can. In terms of pulling that all together, that's probably something that I'm not 100% sure exactly how you'd want to do that. We don't have a linear editor, an equivalent of Adobe Premiere Pro within the software at present. So yeah, you probably have to use additional software to do something like that as well.
Thanks, Joel. And yeah, Roderick, it's a great question, and there are lots of parts to that. If anyone on the call is working on a big project like that, and you really want that hand step by step hand holding or coaching, don't forget that the team in Discord, our community team, are deep experts and are able to sort of unpick all the layers of a project like that and help you through it. Uh, Next up, Joel, Simon has asked, can our prompts include the angle from which we wish to see the object, e.g., viewed from above, angled to the starboard?
Yeah, it definitely can. Yeah, I would, when it comes to prompting something like that's very specific. So I suppose there's two things I'd say. Like you could use, and I can like maybe give this a demo, see if this works. So say we wanted to, say we're in our cinematic keynote. So like I do top down. So I just cleared the decks of all of our prompts. So top down view of a submarine, see what that gives us. Try it on quality because often that will give us something a little bit stronger. But then, so when it comes to really taking control of generations, okay, so yeah, for instance, we got our top down view here, and this looks basically, yeah, like a drone is flying over something. Again, it's a really simple prompt, no image references or anything like that. But you can see that basically I'm able to control the angle like that. And I could go in a bit more macro or like a Dutch eye or something, like whatever it is that I want, I can basically prompt for it. And when it comes to adhering to those prompts, you're going to want that camera angle or view at the very front of your prompt. The words to the left of the prompt have more weight in the prompt than the words on the right. And then, okay, this is top-down view. This one's looking a little wild in terms of the approach because I just had it on dynamic versus cinematic, but I think you guys get the idea.
Yeah, awesome.
So yes, basically you can.
Thanks, Joel. Next question we have is from Anna. And Anna's asked, when I select edge to image, does it have to be on a blank background or can I use a landscape image, for example?
You can use an image that has additional information in the frame versus, for instance, like a sketch like we used or that 3D render that we used. However, the system will start to pick up on any additional outlines within the image. If I use an example of edge to image here, based on, this is probably going to look crazy. Maybe let's use like, this one's probably a good example, right? Like it's a submarine, but it's got like additional information in the water and stuff as well. So let's like use that as edge to image, or like just submarine in outer space. I can try a couple different versions here just to show you how edge to image reads the image. This is not to create a beautiful output, but really just to illustrate an answer to your question. So as you can see, it's read the outline of that image reasonably well. I think it probably helps that it was a reasonably clean image, but basically the more noise in your input image, the more challenging it is for edge to image to work. Edge to image works really well with sketches. Oh, this one's working pretty well. I like this outer space submarine. The alternative to using edge to image, of course, is our content reference, which takes, instead of just the outline of the image, it takes the entire context of the image composition.
So, yeah, that's great. Thanks, Joel. Another question, which is another tricky one. Character emotion is a regular problem with AI tools. Do you have any secret sauce for better, more subtle character emotions? And this is from Hayden.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think how I like to think about AI image generation is like a triangle. Like you've got your prompt input, you've got your image input, and then you've got the model or data set that you're working with. So when we're working on Leonardo, we can influence. So if we want to say influence something like the emotion of the prompt. So that was something we did very early on, right? Like we created our female submarine captain who was heroic and noble, and our male submarine captain who was brooding and evil. And you can see we are like we're getting some of that emotion in the frame, right? Versus this guy who looks like you wouldn't want to meet him down in the galley of the naval sub, right? He's he's not a pleasant character. So the emotion can come through in the prompt, but then if you layer that on top with a character reference, for instance, where a character is looking angry, and then use a particular data set that understands like emotions for cinematic keynote does in this example, you can start to create outputs that are a little bit more specific. Because I was smiling in that character reference, you can see some of those image outputs. I'm actually smiling as well. So yeah, if I wanted to be angrier and eviler in that image output, I should probably frown a little more.
I don't think I've ever seen you frown, Joel, but that's great. I think we've got time for one quick last question from Simon. So, until multiple reference are available, is there a way to use Leonardo to create identical backgrounds and lighting conditions for backgrounds on which to overlay character creation in another app like Canva?
I'm not sure I fully understand that one. So is it about creating backgrounds for images that you could pull into another app?
Consistently, yeah, identically.
Yeah, I would say in terms of that, I think the tools you're looking for are probably content reference, like setting an image as a content reference and turning it up to high, and then going through that same workflow. So using describe with AI on that same image so that our prompt matches our reference image, and then using whatever tools you need to create variations on that image. So for instance, like I could then use style reference with, say, an image of our like submarine in space. And then hopefully from this, I'm going to start to get versions of that image that would be pretty adherent to this base image in terms of look and in terms of sort of composition and feel, but then would have style variations based on that. Or I can turn that off and then add in an element, for instance, and then create style variations based on that element. So I think this might answer your question. You could use this to create a variety of different backgrounds.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. All right, we're out of time. I know there are a ton of product suggestions and questions as to what's coming up next in the chat. Thanks, everyone, for sharing those. I would say there's some very cool stuff coming over the next few weeks and into December. So make sure you stay tuned. In terms of your specific questions about certain features, I'm going to round those up and we're going to make sure they all go to our product team. So thank you for sharing that inspo. Up next for us in terms of webinars, though, we've got video game development coming up in December. So you can sign up for that today. There's also architecture and interior design in January. So more workflows for you to tune into. And lastly, before we jump off, just wanted to share these QR codes for you folks. The first QR code there on the left is for you to join the Discord community. So a lot of the questions you had, some really interesting workflows and use cases there. Don't hesitate to jump into the Discord where you've got a wonderful team of experts who are very patient and very helpful and will take you through every step of the way with the project you're trying to get off the ground. The next web QR code there is just for those webinars, so you can sign up there. And then lastly, if you are using Leonardo in your business and you're looking at the best sort of plan and how to get that set up in your business, then jump into this QR code here and drop your details, and we can get one of our team to reach out to you and talk you through Leonardo for Teams, which is set up for all these sorts of workflows. So I think that's it from us today. Thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with all your fantastic projects, folks.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. I really wish I had more time to answer all of those questions you had coming through. There were some incredible ones, and just like seeing what everyone's working on as well. Yeah, I really encourage you to just experiment and play around with the platform and just go crazy. because I think, yeah, there's a lot of power there for film and TV and video projects for all of your creative needs. Really stoked to see what you guys cook up using Leo.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.